Pakka saman að fara ekki reynda einu viðmældi viðbót eða hvað finnst þér?
Otra enorme explosión. Esa fue grande, miramos.
fountain dito'y tabok, dito'y kalingga, diay, oh. Kadakilan nga fountain dito'y kalingga.
Parts of regional New South Wales is causing health concerns after 3 hospital patients were bitten.
Oh, damn!
The rodents are running rampant across the state's central west region and all the way across the border into southern Queensland. Health officials are urging people to protect themselves from diseases carried by mice, with one case of a type of meningitis reported already. Farmers are desperately seeking new rodent control methods to save their crops from destruction. And Lucy Moss is a farmer and business owner in Coonamble in the central west of New South Wales, and she joins us now from Coonamble. Lucy, g'day. So you're in the shop now, a cafe and homewares gift store. Have they actually got inside the shop?
They have certainly moved in, Joe. They've made themselves quite at home, unfortunately.
And what have they got stuck into in the shop?
Look, I was going to say everything. We've had to check our stock daily. We do a morning routine of removing deceased bodies, but also on the cafe side, we've had to, they've pretty much got into everything that was accessible on shelves or left out, not locked away in bins.
Does it gross you out?
I feel like it's been going on for a number of months now, and I'm still getting grossed out on all different levels.
Right. And so do they, when you say you're picking up the bodies, are they just, there are dead mice on the floor of your shop when you walk in of the morning, or where are they dying?
They have a knack of choosing the most inconsiderate spots to die. So they take it to a whole new level of being an annoyance when they're alive as well as being dead. But yes, we have, we're using traps, and they are also, so we just have to dispose of them that way.
Yeah, and I understand your fridge has broken down as well. How do they end up affecting your fridge?
So our milk fridge that we use to store for the cafe, they climb up underneath and get stuck in the motor which cools the fridge, and it's happened about 7 times now where we'll come in the morning and the milk fridge is sitting at 35 to 40 degrees because the mouse has got trapped in the fan, and we had to dispose of all the milk, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you've got to pick the dead mice out of the back of the fridge in the kind of machinery of the fridge.
It's an electrician's job to come in and do that, thankfully, but yeah, it's not a fun one.
Yeah, and so how much does that cost you then at the shop?
Look, I haven't actually, I would say it's definitely in the thousands, like between
major storm system sweeping across the south. At least 32 reported tornadoes touching down from Oklahoma to Florida. Rob Marciano has the latest.
Overnight, severe storms sweeping through the southeast and mid-Atlantic. Nickel-sized hail crashing down in West Virginia. And in North Carolina, a monstrous thunderstorm moving southeast of Roxborough, producing a rain-wrapped tornado. The strong winds taking down trees and utility poles. The same storm responsible for the intense winds in Burlington, flipping the school bus on its side. In South Carolina, ominous clouds looming over Fort Mill as tornado sirens blare and heavy rain comes down, resulting in severe flooding in Charleston. This as central Alabama tries to recover from the St. Patrick's Day tornado outbreak.
When you lose everything that you worked so hard for, oh, my heart hurts for these people.
The National Weather Service confirming an EF2 tornado with winds reaching 130 miles per hour, touching down in Chilton County, Alabama.
Still rainy and windy here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Nearly 36 reported tornadoes in 3 days across 8 states. No fatalities or serious injuries.
To Japan now, where a powerful 7-magnitude earthquake struck off its northern coast today. It was caught on this newsroom camera in Tokyo, and a nearby airport one as well. Bullet train service shut down and power outages hit thousands. No reports, though, of any serious injuries.
In parts of regional New South Wales is causing health concerns after 3 hospital patients were bitten.
Oh, damn!
The rodents are running rampant across the state's central west region and all the way across the border into southern Queensland. Health officials are urging people to protect themselves from diseases carried by mice, with 1 case of a type of meningitis reported already. Farmers are desperately seeking new rodent control methods to save their crops from destruction. And Lucy Moss is a farmer and business owner in Coonamble in the central west of New South Wales, and she joins us now from Coonamble. Lucy, g'day. So you're in the shop now, a cafe and homewares gift store. Have they actually got inside the shop?
They have certainly moved in, Joe. They've made themselves quite at home, unfortunately.
And what have they got stuck into in the shop?
Look, I was going to say everything. We've had to check our stock daily. We do a morning routine of removing deceased bodies, but also on the cafe side, we've had to, they've pretty much got into everything that was accessible on shelves or left out, not locked away in bins.
Does it gross you out?
I feel like it's been going on for a number of months now, and I'm still getting grossed out on all different levels.
Right. And so do they, when you say you're picking up the bodies, are they just, there are dead mice on the floor of your shop when you walk in of the morning, or where are they dying?
They have a knack of choosing the most inconsiderate spots to die. So they take it to a whole new level of being an annoyance when they're alive as well as being dead. But yes, we have, we're using traps, and they are also, so we just have to dispose of them that way.
Yeah, and I understand your fridge has broken down as well. How do they end up affecting your fridge?
So our milk fridge that we use to store for the cafe, they climb up underneath and get stuck in the motor which cools the fridge, and it's happened about 7 times now where we'll come in the morning and the milk fridge is sitting at 35 to 40 degrees because the mouse has got trapped in the fan, and we had to dispose of all the milk, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you've got to pick the dead mice out of the back of the fridge in the kind of machinery of the fridge.
It's an electrician's job to come in and do that, thankfully, but yeah, it's not a fun one.
Yeah, and so how much does that cost you then at the shop?
Look, I haven't actually, I would say it's definitely in the thousands.
Wales is in the grip of a record-breaking and life-threatening weather emergency. As we go to air, numerous towns along the mid-north coast are underwater. Communities have been cut off and mass evacuation orders are in place. In Sydney, supercells have ripped through suburbs in our west, bringing rare tornadoes and significant damage. There's a moderate to major flood warning tonight for the Nepean, Hawkesbury and Colo rivers, and the severe weather is expected to keep hammering our coast for days to come. Reporter Tiffany Genders begins our coverage.
A suburb turned upside down as if a wrecking ball went through the streets of Chester Hill, in what can only be described as a tornado roaring to life early this morning.
All of a sudden the wind picked up, and then we saw the tornado form, and then we saw trees and plants and people's furniture flying in the air, rubbish bins, and then we screamed and just ran back inside. I've never been so scared in my life.
More than 50 homes damaged in the sudden whirlwind.
My dad's roof's over there somewhere. Don't know whose trampoline that is.
Matt Ho left tarping up his father's house after part of the roof peeled off. Everything the 78-year-old owns now ruined.
At my age, anything comes, anything goes.
It was a storm within the storm. Smithfield also smashed.
I've never seen any wind like that, man. Especially rip out a two-story, three-story tree. Unbelievable.
Scenes just like it all over Sydney. A waterfall outside the water park at Manly. Rain spilling from the lifts at Town Hall Station. The Parramatta River bursting its banks, inundating the site of the new Powerhouse Museum. Our Premier concerned about what's to come.
This will be a deep-seated extreme weather event. It's unlikely the rain will stop until towards the end of next week.
For the first time in a long time, rain has tipped Warragamba Dam over the edge, spilling late this afternoon. Communities along the Hawkesbury, Nepean and Colo rivers bracing for major flooding and evacuation orders.
The worst case scenario is that a warning comes after dark. Please make sure that you're prepared.
Wallachia could be one of the first to go under.
Just pack everything up high and hope for the best.
A year ago, Sydney siders were living on level 2 water restrictions. Tonight, we're inundated. Tiffany Genders, 9 News.
Communities
south of downtown today. Here's why. The commercial pole barn caught fire. This is at the corner of South Division and Alger. Police say that a vehicle being worked on inside of that building started on fire and the flames spread. Smoke could be seen for miles.
The AstraZeneca candidate generated some controversy earlier this month in Europe with reports about possible blood clotting. But in a press release today, the drug maker cited data from a U.S. trial and says the shot is safe and effective. In fact, 80% efficacy in older people. It is delivered in 2 doses, 1 month apart.
12:45 or later, it's over by the benches.
I'd take any vaccine they give me.
Thousands more Marylanders got a COVID shot Monday. With so many appointments at the M&T Bank Stadium mass vac site, the line stretched across the street. And folks here had heard the news about the AstraZeneca COVID shot.
The 3 that we had that worked is enough for me. You know, another one, we could use it, but if it's causing problems, I don't think we should take a chance on it.
In a press release, AstraZeneca says data from its clinical trials in the U.S. found its vaccine to be safe and effective. 79% efficacy against all COVID illness, it says. 100% efficacy against severe COVID illness and hospitalization.
it is possible that that in a couple of months the AstraZeneca vaccine will be on the menu.
Dr. Bill Moss with the International Vaccine Access Center at Johns Hopkins expects emergency authorization from the FDA by the end of April.
And with expanded eligibility, it's possible that there could be a need for increased doses, and they could come from AstraZeneca.
Eligibility in Maryland expands tomorrow. Phase 2 begins, and all residents 60 and older can start getting the shot. Ahead of that, MDH says it's shipping more doses to local health departments, 21% more to Baltimore County each week, a 22% increase for Anne Arundel and Baltimore City, and a 25% increase in doses for Howard. The bottom line for Marylanders, Dr. Moss says, is they're primarily going to be offered the Pfizer, the Moderna, or the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. But he does say in a couple of months, we will be at a point where people will be able to choose which vaccine they get. At M&T Bank Stadium,
is preparing his return to social media on a new platform which he claims will redefine the game. So what does this mean? Let's bring in US Studies CEO Simon Jackman. Simon, what do you think we can expect from Trump and his team?
I think he's mad keen to get back out there on social media. A few things are happening in American politics that I think he can't start the sidelines on. In particular, the border crisis. That is money for jam for Donald Trump. That is an I told you so moment about a humanitarian crisis following a relaxation or signals of a relaxation of his policy with respect to the border. I think him being on the sidelines when there's that much good politics to be had is probably driving him crazy. And I've maintained all along, look for the money. This will be about a monetization play. Don't expect this to be Twitter. Expect this to be perhaps a pay-to-play service if you want the words of Donald Trump. And he won't be limited to 150 characters this time. Expect to pony up, and I think there's as much to do about that as anything else.
Yeah, because he obviously loved Twitter back when he was allowed to use it. So do you think there's a market for a Donald Trump social media platform that people would pay for?
You wonder what else will be in the mix. I was very curious to see that the person announcing it was Jason Miller, who was Trump's communications specialist. I think there's a business model that's going to accompany this. It just can't be the text that we're used to. Expect more to be in the mix, I expect. And how this can sustain, frankly, an income stream for Trump and I think a lot of people that were making quite a bit of money being part of the Trump train, particularly through the election campaign in 2020.
So he has been keeping a pretty low profile in Florida. Do you know what he's been up to?
Look, he was on Fox. He's been quite prominent on that part of American mainstream media, Fox, and commentators on Fox that are friendly to him. So he hasn't gone away at all. Remember last time we spoke, he'd just spoken at that Conservative Political Action Conference meeting. I think he is dying to get back in the game because that is influence and that is money and that is attention, and those are three things that Donald Trump really likes.
Okay, while I've got you here, I have to ask, those pictures we saw over the weekend, Joe Biden stumbling up the stairs of Air Force One, what'd you make of it?
It took me back because he stumbled up the stairs onto stage with us here in Sydney back in 2016. At the Paddington Town Hall, an event we did for him. He likes to do that jog sort of motion, but maybe he ought to perhaps take it easy. There's an awful lot there that we need Joe Biden to be in the job for. Slow down, old fella. If he was tripping 5 years ago, you wonder, he probably hasn't gotten any better over the last 5.
Obviously, as critics would point to his age being an issue, of course, they made a big deal about it during the campaign. Just a clumsy guy, not so much not a concern about his age.
The White House is trying to hide the truth about what's really going on. And we know now why they've been blocking the media from seeing it firsthand. Shocking new photos from inside a Texas facility show horrific conditions for migrant children crammed into little plastic cages. One pod is at nearly twice the capacity and is holding more than 400 unaccompanied male minors. The White House claims it's working on giving reporters access, while the DHS secretary says we might just have to take the Biden administration's word for it.
Number one, let's not forget that we're in the midst of a pandemic, and we are focused on our operations, executing our operations in a crowded Border Patrol facility where hundreds of vulnerable migrant children are located, number one. And number two, we're working on providing footage so that the American public can see the Border Patrol stations.
So we're supposed to rely on the White House that says it's not a crisis to show what's happening? It's ridiculous. But don't worry, President Biden has everything under control and says he'll eventually get down to the border.
Are you thinking of going to the border?
At some point I will, yes.
Do you want to see firsthand what's going on in those facilities?
I know what's going on in those facilities.
I'm not really sure he does. All right, Judge Janine, you were just down at the border. Tell us what you saw down there.
Well, it is a mess, but I have to comment on Mayorkas. You know, for this guy to claim, you know, there's COVID, it's a pandemic, we can't let anybody go down, we got to protect the children. This guy is either disingenuous or is lying, because these children are not even being tested for COVID. In addition to that, for him to say that, you know, we're working on it, these kids are in lucite cages with some kind of, you know, a blanket that's made of foil. And the bottom line is that they're now being sent into the interior, but they're being kept longer than 72 hours, which is outside of the requirements. 2,000 kept longer than 72 hours. 800 kept longer than 10 days. They're not following any of the guidelines. Everything they complained about when President Trump was in office, they're doing, but they're trying to hide it from us. They're trying to say, don't believe your lying eyes. We're telling the truth. They're not telling the truth. They're lying. And when I talked to Border Patrol when I was down there, they said it's a nightmare, that they are the ones who are being subjected to COVID, that they don't even feel the Border Patrol and the sheriffs like they're part of America anymore. People in the southern towns that border Mexico.
The Biden administration is now scrambling to control the biggest border surge in 2 decades.
It is taking time, and it is difficult because the entire system was dismantled by the prior administration.
President Biden's Homeland Security Secretary defending their response as Biden says he's aware of the conditions inside crowded Border Patrol facilities.
I know what's going on in those facilities.
The president has no trips to the border planned, but sent a top immigration official to meet with Mexican leaders today about stemming the surge of migrants.
What we are conveying from our end is that the border is not open.
For weeks, the White House has declined to call it a crisis, but now officials are explicitly saying it isn't one.
Children presenting at our border who are fleeing violence, who are fleeing prosecution, who are fleeing terrible situations is not a crisis.
Almost 4,900 unaccompanied migrant children are now being held in Border Patrol facilities, with over 800 there for more than 10 days, far longer than the 72 hours the law allows. Secretary Mayorkas visited the border this weekend, but didn't take reporters with him as the administration continues to deny access to the facilities.
We're working on independent press coverage. I certainly hope to have an update for you very soon, but I can't give you a deadline on that.
Instead, reporters have been forced to rely on lawmakers. Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar released these pictures showing unaccompanied migrant children sleeping on floors in a crowded Border Patrol facility in Texas. The backlash has been bipartisan. Democratic Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema and GOP Texas Senator John Cornyn both urged Biden today to use his full authorities to effectively respond and said current facilities are insufficient. And President Trump also criticized Biden's policies today.
People are just pouring into our country, and they will destroy our country. They will destroy.
In this morning's Consumer Alert, scammers are taking advantage of the pandemic to target older victims, and they're trying to get them to give them their money and their identities. And joining us this morning with more on the latest scam is Angie Barnett with the Better Business Bureau of Greater Maryland. Good morning. Great to see you.
Good morning, Jen. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. But this next scam you're going to talk about is so unfair because it involves some fake contests.
Absolutely. This is an old scam. We've had lottery, sweepstakes, contest scams around forever, but it's really ticked up in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. This is one of the few scams that really targeted seniors, and they're the ones that are falling for this scam. And it's a high dollar value. Total 2020 reported to the FBI around $6 million with a 10% increase, 9% increase over the previous year. So this is a big deal, and it's hitting right here in our city.
So how does it work? Who's doing the scamming? What does it look like for people?
Yeah. The biggest scam for the contest scam is a phone call. The reason why that is so important, our seniors are around to still answer landlines. The phone call also engages you. The reason this works, scammers are con artists. Jen, they simply know how to convince you that they are real, and what they're offering to you, you won a contest, is legitimate. So it's simply saying you've won a contest, and what we need you to do is go, and in Baltimore City, they were directed to go to Walmart and purchase prepaid cards, load them up, and give them the numbers on the back. And one of the ways we found out about this, taxi drivers have been reporting it to the city health department, saying we've got elder fraud, we've got abuse. And these individuals, they really can't be dissuaded. They are very committed to, I won, and I'm going to get that money. All I got to do is pay an upfront fee.
Because it sounds so good, but you've always said if it's too good to be true, it usually is. And there are other scams that are going on right now. What's happening during the pandemic?
Yeah, we continue to say the number one scam is online shopping, and that's where we're buying critical items, and we're buying them from fake websites or websites in which we are delivered counterfeit items. But the fake websites, they get your credit card, and that's the biggest hiccup we're seeing. So online scams, and of course, I always have to smile, online puppy scams continue to be high volume, people ordering puppies
the FBI
online.
Says it's aware of a malware attack that canceled school for students in the Park Hill School District.
The late change came just as middle and high schoolers were set to return to in-person learning for the first time. Our reporter Sarah Plake explains what exactly led up to this cancellation.
12,000 students in the Park Hill School District did not have school Monday because of a malware attack. Or simply put, a virus attacked the technology systems that the district uses to function.
It really is just a huge disappointment. But at the same time, we've got to be safe. And we know that one of the biggest areas we have to be safe is in the area of cyber.
The district discovered the problem on Sunday. The technology department worked all night to identify what was going on, but early Monday morning, the district says an unexpected issue forced them to cancel school. They can't announce what that is yet, or if this is a malware or ransomware issue.
For me, I was trying to help a couple moms figure out, does your kid already get on the bus?
By the time they canceled, kids were either already on their bus or waiting for the bus. Parents had already gone to work. The district apologized for the late notice.
We made the decision to go ahead and run all the buses, all the routes, just in case there was a student that was out there or a child was out there, brought them into school, contacted parents, and then we set up a bus routes to get everyone back home. And so we know that everyone is back home safely.
For some parents, it was a major inconvenience, but many others are trying to be understanding.
Give them grace. The poor people have been working nonstop. We should have learned by now to be a little bit flexible as parents.
Extracurriculars are not impacted. One of the major questions parents have right now is, will my kid go to school tomorrow? How long will this last? The district said that they will alert parents by 6 o'clock if they will not have school tomorrow. I'm Sarah Plake, 41 Action News.
Other states in the country, but a new law recently passed has the potential to help lower those numbers. Lawmakers unanimously voted to create a breast milk bank on the campus of UAMS Little Rock. This means healthy moms can donate their extra milk to help others. The milk bank is dedicated to helping premature babies and babies with complex medical problems. Right now, the state sends hundreds of thousands of dollars out of state to get donor milk.
And we want to make sure that the milk that our mothers are donating for the babies in Arkansas gets to stay in Arkansas and benefit the babies all around the state.
UAMS says the funding for the breast milk bank should come through around the 1st of July.
We've been hearing from unemployed Hoosiers who need help.
They've been locked out of the state system for unemployment benefits because of fraud, and some of them have been locked out for months. So we wanted to know what's being done to help them. Fox 59's Jill Glavin explains the problem and why it's been difficult to get answers.
People like me are being ignored.
When Melanie Waite lost her job due to COVID-19, she started getting weekly unemployment benefits. Then in October, she found herself unable to log into the state system called Uplink.
I was locked out. I couldn't get in, couldn't do anything.
It took 2 months for the state to let her back into the site. She got this letter saying, "Your unemployment account has been flagged by our system for suspicious activity. Please answer the below questions and provide the requested documentation." She did that in January.
Nothing happened. 3 people have told me they expedited to try to get this thing cleared up.
And it keeps saying that my Social Security number is not valid.
Jeffrey Double lost his job in December. He hasn't been able to apply for unemployment because the Uplink system already received a fraudulent claim under his Social Security number.
Nobody's calling back. Nobody's giving me answers. I don't know what's going on.
Double recently filed an identity theft complaint with the Indiana Attorney General's office, which reported a huge spike in complaints related to unemployment fraud, including almost 600 complaints this month. I wanted to know what the state is doing to help people like Waite and Double, but the Indiana Department of Workforce Development has declined all of our interview requests since December. In an email, the department pointed me to the state form for people to report fraud and open an investigation. The state also hired a company called ID.me to help verify Hoosiers' identities. Waite finally got a call back on Friday, but still no timeline for her benefits, and Double is still waiting on his call.
At the end of the day, people are hurting because of the decisions that they're making.
So I'm just trying to provide for my family, and it's been a struggle.
Jill Glavin, Fox 59 News.
So maybe you might need some help filing for unemployment, or you think someone filed a fraudulent claim using your name. We do have some information for you. We'll get you some help.
Pennsylvania's mask mandate, but only for those who are now fully vaccinated. State health leaders now say that those who have had both of their shots or the one Johnson & Johnson shot can safely gather without masks and without social distancing. Glad you're with us at 5. I'm Ken Rice.
And I'm Kim Gable. Those changes mirror new guidance from the Centers for Disease Control. But as Ross Gadati explains, there are some very important conditions attached. Ross.
Kim, Ken, good afternoon. Now, the State Department of Health is adopting the CDC's approach to dismasking, and you mentioned it before. If you're vaccinated and the people around you are vaccinated, that is a key point. They say you can now visit with other fully vaccinated individuals indoors without wearing a mask or physical distancing for that matter. You can also visit with unvaccinated people from a single household who are at low risk for severe COVID-19 disease indoors without wearing a mask or physical distancing and refraining from quarantine and testing following a known exposure if the individual is asymptomatic. I know that sounds like a lot, but it basically says if you've been vaccinated and the other person's been vaccinated, you may be in good shape. I spoke to a few people who say that's all great news, and there are others who say that's cool, but we're still going to keep our masks on.
I could go along with that, but how do you know for sure?
It would be a huge relief for me if everybody was getting vaccinated and then we wouldn't have to wear masks all the time.
It really does make a difference for us. Like our grandparents are finally being able to get the vaccine, so it does make a difference.
All right, but it is very important to note this is only, and I have to repeat this only, if you have both shots or the one Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about this at 6 with a physician who knows quite a bit about the CDC's guidelines and their other measures. He also says, why are we all of a sudden following the CDC guidelines immediately? It's basically to keep it as simple as possible. We'll tell you about that coming up at 6 o'clock. Reporting live in Greensburg, Ross Gadati.
A controlled burn got out of control in Laurel tonight. The Laurel Fire Department responded around 5 p.m. near Field Road and East Laura Lee Lane. A controlled burn engulfed some of the vehicles stored on the property. The Park City Fire Department helped.
The future of food delivery may be in the hands of robots. Sounds like something from the Jetsons, right?
Yes. It's actually happening at a university in Ohio, and it's been this way now for a year. In this News 5 original, Homa Bash shows us their success and the lessons they have learned.
At first glance, they honestly just look adorable. Little robots making their way every which way across the campus of Bowling Green State University.
They're really nice and innovative. Like, I never would have thought that this would be a thing that
we'd be able to see.
BGSU was the first university in Ohio to offer this robot food delivery service to students and staff back in March 2020. In the works for years, they launched right before the pandemic hit, and folks started hunkering down.
I think it's one of those cool things that BGSU was at the right place at the right time.
It's a partnership between the university's dining service, Chartwell's, and Starship Technologies. The little robots go about 4 miles an hour. They can operate through rain and snow, carrying pizzas, groceries, drinks, you name it. More than a dozen sensors and GPS help guide their paths.
Also with the mapping process, they are told where's a safe place to go and where's not a safe place to go. So they can only cross at certain crosswalks.
Sometimes it's really funny to laugh at them because they get stuck or they just sit there and stare at each other.
Hey, robots will be robots, right?
Very kind.
An app on your phone lets you pay and order from a variety of restaurants, Panda Express, Starbucks, campus dining, and more, and delivers right to your dorm room or apartment. Students telling us the $1.99 delivery fee is well worth the convenience.
Definitely. I roll over in my bed, I order my food, I roll back over, and I just leave my dorm to get the food. So yeah.
There are hundreds of people who work to fill the orders all day long, alongside students who are gaining valuable robotics experience. And of course, one of the most asked questions. With thousands of college students and dozens of little robots, how much do they get tampered with, or worse, stolen?
Basically robot LoJack on them. So if anybody tries to mess with them too much, they make this really loud screaming noise like a siren, and then they also basically call for help.
Ah, yes, because sometimes even robots still need a little human help.
Oh, thanks.
The university is now up to 65 delivery robots zigzagging their way all around campus, making an average of 1,000 deliveries a day. We are told when everyone is back on campus next semester, they plan to beef up the force to over 100 robots to keep up with all that growing demand.
Here's your coffee.
Homa Bash, News 5.
A month after Homeland Security said undocumented people will not be targeted at COVID-19 vaccine clinics, hundreds are in line for doses in northern Kentucky. Health officials say this is their region's most vulnerable population, and reaching this group requires fighting through cavities of mistrust and misinformation out there. Here's reporter Larry Seward.
There has some cavities on his x-rays.
In Dr. Eric Soper's Cold Spring Dental Clinic.
There's a tooth with an infection.
Kids in dire need of care got it for the first time since coronavirus closed in-school clinics last year, leaving Boone, Grant, Kenton, and Campbell counties most vulnerable, more isolated than ever.
Some of it has to do with the language barrier. Some of it has to do with economic situation. And then some is an aspect of some fear.
A lot of this population, especially the Hispanic in Covington, which is who we are working with, they are mostly undocumented.
The Esperanza Latino Center connects families with care. In this case, a health department grant from the Deaconess Foundation paid for dentists. But you hardly need x-rays to see bigger worries with COVID-19.
Yes, I'm worried because it's very contagious, but I trust in God that he won't get sick.
Elvira's fear is mostly for her 5-year-old son. She moved here 5 years ago from Guatemala, but hardly feels comfortable enough to sign up for vaccine.
I haven't gotten COVID yet, and I just trust God that I won't get it.
300 others are in line for a clinic Northern Kentucky Health set up this week through Esperanza.
We've been trying to work to spread awareness about the truth of the vaccine, and then also have people rely on us or reach out to us if they have any questions. I think it comes down to the trust.
Last month, the Federal Department of Homeland Security said Immigration and Customs agents will not conduct enforcement operations at or near vaccine distribution sites or clinics. Still, advocates see plenty of people rattled by misinformation. So even at dental clinics, they're spreading word, trying to root out doubt. There is enough interest that Esperanza and health officials are in talks about bringing a second clinic to the same community. In Covington, Larry Seward, WCPO.
You normally see along a freeway, but local Caltrans crews have been keeping a close watch on a geyser that is impacting both the Union Pacific Railroad and State Route 111 near Eaton Island in Imperial County. The challenge, this geyser is moving. News 8's Shannon Handy has more on what makes this so rare and the drone video that captures it all.
Marcella, this is the only moving geyser in the world. On average, it shifts about 10 feet every month. Because of that, Caltrans crews have had to plan accordingly to keep traffic in the area moving as well. Close up, you'd think this drone video was captured in Yellowstone National Park, famously known for its geysers. But take a wider look and you'll see why this one is so unique. The bubbling pool of mud sits in Imperial County next to State Route 111 and the Union Pacific Railroad.
So there's water bubbling up through the surface, so you can actually see the caldera.
Sean Rizzuto with Caltrans says the geyser or mud pot is releasing CO2. It's been around since 1953, but it didn't start moving until 2016 following some seismic activity in the area.
So it's been moving about 10 feet per month on average.
The challenge, says Rizzuto, is determining where it will go next.
Right now it's been static for the past probably 2.5, 3 months. So it really hasn't moved very much, but that could change in an instant.
Caltrans officials considered several options, including a detour, which wasn't ideal because it would have taken drivers 80 miles out of the way, and the 111 is crucial for the agriculture business here. So instead, a temporary road was built parallel to the 111, wrapping drivers around the geyser, as you can see in this video.
It's 50 feet from our existing roadway, a couple hundred feet from our new alignment that we constructed for the detour.
In addition, sheet pile walls were constructed, as well as a subsurface drainage system to help control the water being emitted, which some scientists estimate is around 40,000 gallons a day.
With that amount of water, it creates a quick zone, which is liquefaction for about an area from the surface to about between 40 and 50 feet in depth.
But even with all those fixes, the geyser has the upper hand. Initially moving southeast, it continued south, so Caltrans is now expanding that temporary roadway. Their plan is to monitor the geyser until it moves far enough away to be able to repair the original 111 and make that a permanent road yet again for years to come. The cost of this project, around $19 million. Caltrans officials say motorists are not in danger, but keep in mind, this area is not open for public viewing. It has piqued the interest of several people, though, including the experts over at National
It has been a prime waterfront location on the Treasure Coast for decades. New at 5, there's serious talk tonight about moving a wastewater treatment plant in Fort Pierce away from the Indian River Lagoon.
WPTV News Channel 5's John Shaman tonight looks into this project with a 9-figure price tag and who would pay for it.
From ground level, you can't see the tanks, but traveling across the causeway onto South Hutchinson Island, you can see the Fort Pierce Utility Authority's wastewater treatment plant, a plant that sits in a precarious spot, according to St. Lucie County Administrator Howard Tipton.
Is a potential environmental nightmare.
Tipton says had Hurricane Dorian struck, the plant would have been in the Indian River Lagoon.
So we're not starting from scratch, but we have a long way to go, and I think it's an exciting opportunity.
FPUA leaders recently went before the St. Lucie County Commission to discuss moving the plant to the Treasure Coast Energy Center off 𝐶𝐿VETS Road by 2027. The cost would be $156 million, 70% of which would be paid for by FPUA. St. Lucie County would pay the remainder. While FPUA leaders insist that moving the facility will bring hundreds of new jobs to the area, it will also mean higher rates for its customers. Anywhere from $2.13 to $2.42 per month for the next 5 years, depending on the customer's location.
That gives me heartburn.
Fort Pierce Mayor Linda Hudson says she'd like this project done without rate hikes, but she's excited, though, about what could come to this prime piece of real estate.
That's a blank slate. There's a lot of things. It could be a hotel, it could be mixed use.
FPUA says grants from the State Department of Economic Opportunity would hopefully bring down the potential consumer costs.
The city and the county commissions do give final approval on all rate changes.
Future meetings will be set up between the county, the city, and the utility to see where to go next. John Shaman, WPTV.
It is 6:31. Welcome back to Morning Blend. We continue to follow developing news out of South Sacramento. A heavy police presence. This is along Creek's Edge Way near Franklin Boulevard, just south of Florin Road. ABC 10's Kevin John's been there all morning long. Kevin, a lot of police presence, a lot of drones flying around, and now we have some resolution.
Yeah, well, what you just said, that's the good news. The fact that this whole situation, altercation, was able to be resolved peacefully, but not without a few hours of resistance from a suspect that was inside and the police going back and forth. So, Walt, when we first got on the scene, you mentioned the drones. We actually have some video of that right now that I want to show you guys. So this was a look when we arrived here at around 4:45 this morning. You'll see police that were using multiple drones in order to look out over the area, in order to use those drones as surveillance to see what was going on. So if you were just waking up and you saw all of this heavy police presence, let me explain what happened. So at around 3:20 this morning, officers responded to a domestic violence incident that happened right here off Creek's Edge Way. Now, the suspect was initially refusing to exit the apartment, but that's when officers, after a couple of hours, were finally able to convince him to exit the apartment, and shortly after that he was taken into custody. Now, we do understand that there was a female victim inside that apartment. That female victim did sustain minor injuries. Now, she has already been taken out in the paramedics, in addition to a fire engine that was here as well, in order to administer any kind of aid. But once again, this happened in a housing division. This is right off Creek's Edge Way. I would say there's several hundred units that are here, and just in a couple hours that we've been here, we've seen a lot of neighbors coming out wondering what's going on. I spoke to one of the neighbors right before this live shot. They said they're just happy that everything was resolved peacefully because, like I said earlier, it was agencies were on the scene here trying to do what they can to de-escalate the situation. We actually just saw a SWAT vehicle leave out here as well. So, Walt, the good news, everything has been resolved peacefully. As far as how many people were inside the apartment, number of kids, we do not have a definitive on that right now, but once again, everything has been resolved here.
All right, Kevin John.
New data from a U.S. study of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Lexi Johnson joins us now live with what researchers found out about its effectiveness against COVID-19. Lexi, good morning.
Well, good morning, Dan and Carrie. So AstraZeneca says the study found their vaccine to be 79% effective at preventing symptomatic COVID-19, and it's also 100% effective in stopping severe disease and hospitalization. Now, this study included more than 30,000 volunteers. 2/3 were given the vaccine, and the rest were given a placebo. Investigators say the vaccine was effective across all ages, including older people. AstraZeneca also says its experts did not find any safety concerns related to its vaccine, including a rare blood clot that was identified in Europe. Now, last week, more than a dozen countries temporarily suspended use of the AstraZeneca shot due to reports that it was linked to blood clots. AstraZeneca says it's continuing to analyze the U.S. data in preparation for submitting it to the Food and Drug Administration for emergency use authorization in the coming weeks. Now, in the meantime, the stockpile of the vaccine in the U.S. will soon leave the country as President Joe Biden plans to give about 4 million doses of the vaccine to Canada.
We are following breaking news this midday. Sky 2 is live over a fire in Brazoria County. This is happening at the Evergreen Baptist Church off of Highland Park Drive. You can still see the smoke is pretty heavy. They're not seeing too many flames shooting through the roof. That's good news as first responders work to put out that fire. We don't know what exactly caused this fire. Again, this is happening at Evergreen Baptist Church off of Highland Park Drive in Brazoria County. We will bring you the very latest on air and on clicktohouston.com.
No. Yes. No. No.
Every 2 weeks, Peter Opel is one of the millions of Californians who goes through this process to recertify his benefits with EDD.
Yeah, usually it's pretty smooth. I mean, I've been blessed. I haven't had any problems with the EDD.
But this week is different.
But then you do next, now watch it work. And then you get this.
Wow. Yeah, that's not what you want to see.
No.
And he's not alone. Dozens are asking the same question of what's going on.
Here's what we know as of now. The EDD system has been down. It's been off and on for several days now.
But the EDD's only response to ABC 10, as well as Assemblymember Jim Patterson's office, has been that there's a tech issue and that they're working on it.
Now we have the failure of the call system, and now we have failure of their, new and improved technology systems.
And those tech systems are especially needed now. In addition to those trying to recertify, there's also more who need to reapply for annual benefits, as a year ago, the pandemic started.
I was laid off just about a year ago. I was driving with a limo company.
But just trying to get a hold of the EDD is a job in itself.
It took 2.5 hours to get through. Just constant calling.
But with the EDD's website going dark multiple times, Assemblymember Patterson is now asking the EDD for a report on outages for the last 3 months.
We're going to find out precisely how often.
Demand for the COVID vaccine is growing in Metro Atlanta. This Wednesday, FEMA will join the effort to get the vaccine out to more people through Mercedes-Benz Stadium. 11 Alive's Naima Abdullahi answers 4 big questions about getting an appointment.
Mercedes-Benz Stadium, now housing more than just sports fans who typically rock the red and black, whether it's rooting for the Falcons or Atlanta United. This space now a mass vaccination site to vaccinate as many Georgians as possible. Here are 4 things to keep in mind if you're trying to book an appointment. First, initially they'll only be offering the Pfizer vaccine at the site, so you'll also need to schedule an appointment for the second dose. We're told they could switch to the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine in about 6 weeks. Second, what does availability look like? Fulton County says they plan to give as many as 42,000 vaccines each week, or about 6,000 shots a day with help from FEMA. Third, while it's not a drive-through site, parking is free in the silver and red lots at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And fourth, you still have to be eligible to sign up for a vaccine. That includes people 55 years or older, healthcare workers, nursing home residents and staff, first responders, educators in K through 12, caregivers, people with medical conditions that put them at high risk, parents of children with complex medical conditions, and more. The best way to book an appointment at Mercedes-Benz Stadium is through Fulton's scheduling site at fultoncountyga.gov/COVID vaccine. Head over to 11alive.com.
Families of coronavirus victims for funeral expenses. According to the agency's website, it has $2 billion available. The funds are for individuals and households for COVID-19 related funeral expenses that happened from last January through the end of 2020. The agency has not yet opened up applications.